You're listening to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. This is episode 21, and today's topic is the media or the media deception and public perception. Hey everyone, Adam Muselli here. Welcome to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. This podcast is released every Friday, and show notes are found at the website themindtechinstitute.com. It's all one word. Come back often and feel free to add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. All links are in the show notes and website. Now, let's get started. Many people would rather not know about the major manipulations happening in our world, believing that it's better to focus only on the positive. They choose to avoid looking into the shadows. Yet, would you ignore a friend who was about to harm someone, harm himself or herself, or commit suicide? I'm sure the answer is no. As long as we collectively choose to ignore over-awareness, these manipulations will continue. In fact, they will likely grow in magnitude until people are finally forced to open their eyes and deal with the consequences. And once again, and as everything else, it's a choice you make. In general, the word media isn't a positive or a negative thing. It's just a tool, depends on how it's used. It's same as a glass. A glass is not a positive thing or a positive object, nor a negative object. If you fill a glass with water, then, if you drink that water, it's healthy for you. You need it. But if you put poison in that glass, it will certainly kill you. So as the media. It isn't positive, it isn't negative. It depends how it's used. The word refers to the tools of mass communication. Media today consists of television, the internet, cinema, newspapers, radio, magazines, mail, email, telephone, etc. Let's talk about the visual media, which is the most effective. Viewers can see some form of pictorial representation of messages through certain types of broadcasting and advertising. Images are usually visual representations. Pictures, graphics, include video, movies. You see, images are very useful in the media to help get across messages effectively. And of course, since the subconscious mind's language is images and symbols, and that's why you see media images are everywhere in modern society. We know this because when you go almost anywhere, for example, drive on the roads, we can see billboards promoting famous brands and the latest products and trends. When we are attracted to advertisements, we may begin to imagine or visualize using that product or services or whatever is being advertised. Why the focus on images, you may ask? Well, since 65% of people are visual, according to the Social Science Research Network, and of course, they tap on the kinesthetic people in other form of advertisement. More about that is in another episode. By the way, kinesthetic people means emotional people or people who learns by feelings or who process information in their mind by feelings. So the media can give us information to tell us what a product, service, or message is. In fact, media influence has become so powerful today that they can easily influence people positively and or negatively. We also live in a society that depends heavily on the media as a source of entertainment and information. Indeed, our life will remain incomplete without the media. For example, the media provides an easy means of communication where people are able to contact friends and family from another side of the world. At the same time, media like television and radio and the internet enhance our knowledge by providing access to information from all over the world. We can also receive different types of news or daily events through the media almost instantly, and especially through the internet. For example, when the video of people protesting on the streets of Cairo in Egypt, and they were protesting to change the government in Egypt, was broadcast over the World Wide Web, these images actually influenced more people from other countries to join the street protests in support to the Egyptian protesters. Now, I'm not discrediting those protests nor glorifying them. To me, they smell like George Soros. Well, that's another topic too. Something like Egypt happened in 2010 in Thailand, where the red shirts protested in the streets to oppose and change the Thai government. The Thai government then had supporters who wore the yellow shirts and also marched in the streets and protested opposing the other party. These kinds of images, when seen on TV, newspapers, or the internet by individuals and society in general, can influence viewers to either support or not to support who are in power. Now, maybe you're asking, was Soros behind that too? Well, I don't know. Just keep in mind that currency traders benefit from political instability. They short sell a currency and then devalue it, which is most likely Soros's method. But once again, this episode is about explaining what the media is and basic understanding about their influence techniques. And very soon, we'll cover in depth some current events related to social manipulation. Now, at the same time, media like television enhances our knowledge by providing access to information all over the world. We can also receive different news or daily events through the TV. It can also be such a powerful educational tool for the younger generation, hoping to put them on the right path if there is a decent educational program left on TV these days. But think of Sesame Street, for example, which is one of the TV programs that has a positive influence among many of the younger generation. They taught children to communicate effectively, to spell correctly, choose healthy food, have fun with learning. And don't forget that program taught children how to communicate with deaf people. So television provides a good influence in education by helping to teach the right values. And once again, I don't think such TV programs are being aired these days. On the other hand, mass media can at times have a negative influence. Advertisement can be created to convince people to buy or give support for a certain product. In addition to advertisement, some messages may have hidden motives, and I'm not talking about subliminal messages here. For example, advertisements may show images of young people enjoying fried chicken, burgers, snacks, and sweet drinks. Well, these advertisements of images can have a powerful influence on the young generation or the children. The hidden message behind these advertisements are to persuade the younger generation to buy and to enjoy these types of unhealthy foods. However, these images do not show or tell the viewers that these foods may not be good for their health. I mean, read my book, The Day We Gave Up Health, is the best example of such media manipulations when it comes to foods and advertisement. I mean, there is a whole chapter. It's all about the media. Also, images in the media can have a powerful influence on our behavior. You see, video games and movies are another form of mass media. You see, lots of these video games and movies these days, they may show violence in one form or another. For instance, younger people may show disrespect or even bully older people. Images of violence somehow influence individuals, and especially the younger generation, to think that violence is accepted by society when it's actually not. And they think violence is a form of being cool among their peers or friends. Movies can also be used to show sexual images. Such images have a powerful influence on the mind of young people. People who watch these images may be influenced to react in a socially unacceptable or even criminal manner. Also, there is a high budget Hollywood movie. I'm not going to say the name and advertise for such movie, but it's a romantic movie that shows the relationship between two very well-known actors. Now, the guy acts as a brilliant thief who steals a large sum of money. Well, he's so smart that nobody can identify who he is. At the end of the story, he's not caught and he goes free. This movie somehow teaches the younger generation that it's all right to steal and be smart. They think it's right. Also, magazines display visual images that can deeply influence female readers. Young girls and adult women spend times reading those magazines, partly or mainly because of the fashion trends. Most of these models in the magazines are tall, slim, have nice hair, skin, and whatever the trend is going these days. Based on a research, 70% of women feel insecure after they read such magazines. In this example, women wanted to slim down to look like the model in the magazine. They will go on diet until they see some results. They will also try to do some medical surgeries that will cause some side effects to their body. If you want to know more about that, I think it's episode 15 or 14. It's about losing weight. These types of media images may have a huge impact on society and may even influence public opinion on how females, especially young girls and women, should look like. It's more like stereotyping the female, how she should look like, and if she doesn't look like that, she's not going to be happy. And that's why 70% of those women, they feel insecure after they read these magazines. Now, here are briefly some of the major techniques the mainstream media uses to manipulate and influence the masses. One of the major techniques the mainstream media uses is hoaxing. Hoaxing is, of course, something is intended to deceive or defraud or anything to deceive or lie. For example, when the news reports a fake story as well as when misleading public stunts, scientific frauds, false bomb threats, and business scams are also hoaxes. Now, for something to become a hoax, the lie must have something more to offer. It must be outrageous, it must be dramatic, but also it has to be believable. It has to be ingenious and to steer emotions such as sadness and fear. Above all, it must be able to attract attention from the public. Once it has done that, then a hoax is in a full effect. Think of it this way. A couple of guys with box cutters, they hijacked 2 airplanes with a little to none flying training. They did a sharp turn which pilots with thousands of flying hours said they cannot do. And then they flew the planes into a solid skyscraper. And the whole skyscraper totally collapsed, which it defies the laws of physics and gravity and any related law you can think of. And of course, later, another building more than half a mile away just collapsed on its own and was announced by the reporter as it is collapsing before it even collapsed. Now, this is what also makes me think about this twice. Why every scientist who tried to debunk the plane story, or at least tried to question the scenario of these plane stories, those scientists, they got fired from their jobs. And also they got ridiculed and humiliated on the mainstream media. They got framed, or most likely they ended up dead. Case closed, suicide. And how dare you to ask questions? So you cannot ask questions. No critical thinking is allowed. You just stop thinking and obey with the rest of the sheeple. Just like in George Orwell's book, 1984. If you haven't read it, I highly advise you to read it. Now you might be thinking, well, Adam, so are you telling us this attack was a hoax? Well, the whole point here is not what I'm telling you and you to listen and believe what I'm saying. The whole point here is you have to go and you have to do your homework and believe whatever you want to believe. Or otherwise, you haven't learned anything from this podcast. I will just tell you what to believe and you will just do on command. So I'll be no different from the media and the sheeple who stay as sheeple. Just don't forget what Joseph Goebbels, who was the propaganda minister for Hitler, he said, if you lie a lie big enough, loud enough, and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. And that's exactly what the media does. And that will lead us also to another powerful technique the mainstream media uses, which is propaganda. Propaganda is a form of communication that is aimed at influencing the attitude of a community towards some cause or a position by presenting only one side of an argument. Propaganda is commonly created by governments, but some forms of mass communication created by other powerful organizations can be considered propaganda as well, as opposite to impartially providing information. Propaganda just to influence an audience. Propaganda is usually repeated and spread over a wide variety of media in order to create the chosen result or outcome in audience attitudes. Now, I will not explain the propaganda in depth here because I'll be doing a whole series about propaganda, a whole series in depth about propaganda. Next technique they use is called psychological warfare, or better known as psychops, or psychological operations. Also, I'll be elaborating about this more in future episode, but basically, psychological warfare is sometimes considered as synonymous with propaganda. So, propaganda normally occurs within a nation, whereas psychological warfare normally takes place between nations and often during wars. Many techniques are used to influence a targets values, beliefs, emotions, motives, reasoning, and behavior. Next is public relations, and once again, this will be more explained in depth when we start our propaganda series, because public relations is actually the first cousin of propaganda. Basically, public relations, or PR, is the management of information being communicated between an individual or an organization and the public. Other powerful techniques the mainstream media uses is distraction, which it comes in many forms, but let's talk about distracting the public. Probably this is the oldest trick in the book. This technique consists on discrediting, or better say, refuting arguments by appealing to nationalism or by inspiring fear and hate towards a foreign country or a regime, or to all the foreigners. This has the potential of being important since it gives the propagandists the power to discredit any information coming from the other countries. For example, I'll just give you some example of how this works. Let's say, for example, two people are sitting on TV debating in some debate show or talkback show. The reporter, for example, asks a question to that, let's say, politician. He would say something like, what do you think about, let's say, NATO politics on X matter? Well, the answer would be something like, I think they've been wrong about everything for the last 20 years or so. Another question, your idea is quite similar to the one proposed in La La Land, let's say. And the answer would be, are you suggesting La La Land is better country than ours? You see, that's a simple scenario about distracting the public. This distracting the public in conversation, in words, which I'm sure you hear it every day on the news. Now, if you studied neuro-linguistic programming with us, NLP, you would really understand this kind of talk and communication and see what's behind the words. By the way, now you can become a fully certified NLP practitioner or master practitioner totally online. Just go to the mindtechinstitute.com, go on online courses, and you'll find it there. There are other techniques which the mainstream media uses. We will get to them in details in some future episodes. Those techniques, for example, the straw man, distraction by scapegoat, distraction by major events, such as false flags operations, and we're going to cover that in depth in some future episodes. And also the smoke screen techniques, as in Wag the Dog movie, if you've seen it. I think it's 1997. And we'll also talk about other means of influence, such as reciprocation, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, scarcity, especially scarcity. Scarcity is a very powerful technique, especially in marketing and public relations, as well as in propaganda. By the way, we also teach those techniques in our online NLP training and the online advanced presentation training. We teach all these techniques in the advanced presentation training, or at least an ethical form of it. So in conclusion, the use of media can be both positive and negative to the individual or society. In a positive way, the media makes our life easier. For example, we can get to know what's going on out there, locally or globally within a short space of time. Of course, if the media presented the actual news, not some fake news with some crisis actors for an agenda. Those crisis actors, probably I'm gonna have a whole episode about these things. You can learn more about it too. I elaborated a little bit more in the previous episode. Even though there are many benefits from the media, you just have to be careful not to let them influence you unknowingly. And that's the whole purpose of this episode and the upcoming episodes. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you can email me. The email is on our website, themindtechinstitute.com. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube. The Dynamic Thinking Project podcast is released every Friday. Until next time, take care and enjoy your weekend. This is Adam Muselli, signing out.